The Robert G. Dicus Award is the most prestigious award presented by our section to a deserving member. The Dicus Award recognizes a single member of PPS whose contributions as a whole have been of exceptional value. As the first president of the PPS from 1957 to 1959, Robert G. Dicus set the standard for volunteer leadership in this section. Previous winners' names of this prestigious award are appearing on the screen. Would those individuals in attendance today please stand and be recognized? Pretty darn impressive group. The PPS Board of Directors is very pleased to present Tom DiAngelis with the 2017 Robert G. Dicus Award. For the past 20 years or so, Tom has exemplified the highest level of service and commitment to his patients and more broadly to our profession. As a physical therapist, he has been actively involved in advocacy of our profession at the state and national levels through his ongoing participation in the State Physical Therapy Associations of Ohio and Washington, along with extensive service with PPS and APTA. Tom has served in various capacities with both of the latter organizations, including APTA's Government Affairs and Political Action Committees, as well as PPS Director, and more recently, a two-term president of PPS. Against any measure, Tom DiAngelis would be considered a successful physical therapist, businessman, and leader. But perhaps more importantly, he is a loving husband and a caring father. Tom has been able to strike that critical balance between the profession and family, advocating for physical therapy profession while always making certain that he is present for his wife, children, and yes, grandchildren. I have the personally great honor of being here tonight and had the honor of serving with Tom as his vice president for 6 years Tom was president. I have a greater honor of having Tom as a close personal friend. His dedication, his wisdom, and his integrity are unimpeachable. His leadership set the standard for board member involvement and forward-thinking decision-making, setting a solid foundation for our future. There's no one I know who has worked harder to advance private practice physical therapy than Tom DiAngelis. Past board members have described Tom as smart, effective, dedicated, and a great wine palate. And always on time. Tom has left other tangible, if not so well-known legacies, such as being snorbied or AIS. Those of you who served with Tom will recognize these immediately. For the rest of you, ask Tom later. So in light of his many years of exemplary leadership and his continued advocacy for our profession, tonight it is my great honor to introduce my good friend and present this well-deserved award, the 2017 Robert G. Dicus Award, to Tom DiAngelis.
Love you too.
You put this over here.
You know, Terry, they say that friends are people who know all about you, but they like you anyway. Thank you for being a friend. And it is my honor to have you be the one to present me with this award tonight. So thank you very much. I would like to thank the awards committee for considering me for this award, and the PPS Board of Directors for approving the committee's recommendations. I would also like to thank a dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Peter Town, for initiating this process. Peter, I know you're here. I'm not sure where, but thank you. And there you are. All right. And to those of you who wrote letters of support, although I've spoken to you all personally, I want to again express my appreciation. When I received the packet that included the letters you all had written supporting me, they brought tears to my eyes. To think that you all, extraordinary individuals and leaders that I have the utmost respect for, wrote letters on my behalf, and I cannot thank you enough. Now, although I've stood here and spoken many times, I have to be honest and tell you, just as Jerry said, I've never been this nervous standing in front of this group. So I have to do something to calm my nerves. So as you know, there are many techniques they recommend when you publicly speak on how to calm yourself down. And although probably not in the top 15, the one that I used to use when I was up here as president at conference was I would picture you all naked. You know, everybody's heard that one. So I'm going to give that a try. If you bear with me a minute. Because I really have to calm down here. Let me just, there we go. Wow. Oh, Steve Anderson, did you have to sit so close? Man, that's an image I'll never get out. Oh my gosh, let's put the clothes back on. I'll try to calm down here some other way. Sorry, Steve, you were just that close. Honestly, though, not only am I a little nervous, but I've told many this, I feel very awkward standing here receiving this award. I feel this way because I am receiving it in part due to the support of many others, and most importantly, all of you sitting here. It's the membership of this section that has afforded me the privilege of serving. And I seriously thank you for those opportunities. I feel awkward because there are many board members that I served with, many staff, consultants, business associates, and many at APTA that I worked and collaborated with, all who have supported me and have significant influence in this recognition today. So knowing so many others contributed to my journey is what gives me this uncomfortable feeling to be individually recognized. I also feel very awkward when I look at that list of past recipients that was up there, and I'm awed by these people. I can't help but think, I'm sure many of you did they make a mistake this year? Did somebody mess up? What's going on? I can think of many others that I feel are deserving of this award, and to be listed with this esteemed group of leaders who I admire and respect is a very humbling experience. This journey also would never have been possible if I didn't have the love and support of my family. As we all know, when you volunteer, there are sacrifices that are made by others, and most often it's your family. I am blessed to have all three of my children with me tonight. My daughter, Jennifer, and you all can stand up when I say your name. My son, Michael, and my other son, Sander. There you go. So guys, this is where I usually was when I wasn't at your soccer games, your school events, and I have to be honest though, they never gave me a standing ovation before, so you got to see it, yeah. So, but I cannot thank you, the three of you, enough for being here, for your love and your support. Thank you for being here tonight. I love you. And of course, I am blessed to be married to an amazing woman, Janine Gunn. I would not be standing here if it weren't for your love, your inspiration, your never-ending support. You have always encouraged me and stood right alongside me, no matter what. Thank you for being here. Thank you for always being there. Thank you. And I don't care what anybody says. There's nobody that should sing that song other than Van Morrison. So. So when I first ran for director for the PPS board, it was a huge slate. We had 5 of us slated for one position. And the night before the big candidate speeches, which we'll all hear tomorrow, the night before, Drew Bosland comes to me. Says, "Tom, what are you going to talk about tomorrow? What are you going to say in your speech, you know?" So I lay it out for Drew, and he looks at me, and this is the best advice I think I've ever received. And I've told others this, but I don't think I've ever shared it with Drew. But Drew looks at me and he says, "Tom," he said, "everybody has a laundry list of what they've done." He says, "You have to speak from your heart." He said, "You have to let people know what's in your heart." So, of course, here it is. Night before the speech, I can't sleep. I keep hearing Drew's words over in my head. I'm awake at 3 a.m., rip up my speech, back at the computer, doing it all over. And all I kept thinking was, when I see Drew tomorrow, I am going to rip him a new one. I was just like, what was he thinking the night before? Well, Drew, it worked. As I got elected, but more importantly, many people told me how great the speech was, and that's what swayed their vote. So when I started thinking about what to say this evening, I thought back to Drew's advice. I thought, what's in my heart as it relates to me standing here tonight? And that led me thinking about 3 people who had tremendous influence on me and dedicated themselves not only to volunteerism, but really in making a difference in others' lives. Before I get to them, however, we can't talk about making a difference without first mentioning the individuals that have made a tremendous difference in all of our lives. Many of you sitting here are understandably unaware of the PPS story and the people that made it possible for us to be here. First, of course, is Robert Dicus, who I did not know. However, from everyone I have spoken to about him and everything I have read about him, he was an amazing person, a man of incredible vision, passion, and integrity, described as a leader's leader. He cherished people and his relationships. And thankfully, Bob's character is captured in the archives of the section, never to be forgotten. It was Robert Dicus, along with Charles Magistro and Jim McKellop, who recognized the need for a self-employed section within APTA. And in 1954, they gathered interested private practitioners at the APTA conference to start the wheels in motion for this section. These leaders were the catalyst to forming what we all know now as the private practice section. We are all indebted to them, and it is their vision and tremendous leadership that has made a difference for all of us. Let us never forget those who paved the way for us. Now, as for those 3 individuals that have significantly influenced me, the first is my grandmother. There we go. Meet Pasqualina. Okay. And that's yours truly on Pasqualina's lap. I came to realize later in life she was the most incredible woman I ever knew. Now, first, Grandpa, he was an Italian immigrant, and he was a carpenter. And if anybody here has ever heard the John Prine song, Grandpa Was a Carpenter, that was him. If you're really lucky in the bar one night, you might even get to hear Terry and me sing it. Oh, it's something to hear. Well, being a carpenter during the Depression didn't exactly bring home a lot of money. There was very little work, so Grandma would walk the streets of Boonton, New Jersey with her 3 small children in tow, selling little pin cushions that she made for 5 cents to help support the family. Then one day, she got this harebrained idea. She decided to open a hair salon. Yep, during the Depression. And I'm sure a lot of people thought she was crazy. She opened it in the town I grew up in, Riverdale, New Jersey, a little 2-square-mile town in north central New Jersey. A remarkable success. The business lived on in our small town for over 70 years. And she became the major breadwinner of the family. But it's what she did with that success that I witnessed growing up as a young boy. You see, Grandma was also a full-time volunteer. I watched her tirelessly work to raise money for the local hospital. There's a picture of her from 1973 giving a check to the hospital for over $19,000. For those that are interested, that equates to about $120,000 today. She volunteered for the hospital auxiliary and served as president twice. She started the Golden Ages senior program in town and served as president. At Christmas, she would make my grandfather or one of my unsuspecting uncles dress up as Santa and take them to the hospital to give presents to every child in the hospital. And yes, these were presents that she purchased. My uncle, who is now the sole survivor and family historian, recently shared a story of when a young girl in town broke her leg and her family had no money for medical expenses. It was Grandma that had a fundraiser and provided the family with the money they needed. She could not stop giving and volunteering if she wanted to. She's a very religious woman. Yes, an Italian Catholic, so be really careful there, watch out. She knew she was blessed, and she wanted others to feel blessed as well. I watched her while I was growing up, and to me that's just what Grandma did. She worked, she volunteered, and yes, she spoiled her grandchildren. So she was a true leader in our community and a woman way ahead of her time. You see, she cared about others and made a difference in people's lives. Watching her growing up was a tremendous positive influence on me. My regret is that in my younger years, I did not recognize how remarkable she was until her before she passed. Now, Grandma's volunteerism carried over to my father. For as a youngster, not only was I watching Grandma volunteer, but my father as well. And there you go, meet Mike. Never without a pipe in his hand, ever. So he served on the town council and the school board of education. He was a baseball coach. He ran a summer program in town for kids. My father was a school teacher, industrial arts to be exact. Elmer Platts can tell you. Elmer was my father's student in high school. Is that not a small world or what? I'll tell you what. He was also active in his association at the time, the New Jersey Education Association. My father went on to high school administration, where he was the vice principal. And in this role, as many of you probably know, you handle discipline, but a lot of counseling of students as well. He was loved by all. Fun-loving, always the life of the party, and he always found a reason to laugh. And despite being the disciplinarian for school, the kids loved him because he recognized that we were kids and we were going to make mistakes. You always had a second chance with Mr. D, as he was affectionately known. But I can tell you, by golly, do not do the same stupid thing twice. Nope. When my dad passed in 1995 at the young age of 63, I was at the house with my sisters making the arrangements, and the phone rang. The woman was on the line, and she asked me if this was Mike DiAngelis' house. I told her yes, and that I was his son. She said she had to call because she just heard the news, and she was saddened and wanted to share what my father did for her. She went on to say that when she was in high school, she made a mistake, and she got pregnant. She told the story of how some people were telling her to abort the pregnancy. Others were saying she should drop out of school to have the baby. She was distraught, confused, and she felt alone. She said she confided in my father, and he was the only one who encouraged her that she could have the baby and finish high school. She said thanks to him, she was a high school graduate with a beautiful 10-year-old daughter. She had sought his counsel because of who he was. You see, he cared about others, and he made a difference in people's lives. So for the final person that had a tremendous influence, and this is someone that I believe saved me my senior year of high school and is a prime reason that I stand before you today. I'm talking about my high school football coach, Bob Sawyer. So when I was in high school, probably like a lot of you, we basically had 4 groups. We had the jocks, the hippies, the greasers, and the nerds. So that was just the way it was. But I had some of my father's personality, and I could pretty much roll and hang out with any of them. And before the start of my senior year, my parents' marital problems came to a head. And with that, they had their own issues to deal with. And after football season, I started hanging with the hippies more. I stopped looking at colleges and thought, I'm going to take a year off to work, and then I'll go to school. So one day, Coach Sawyer, he corners me and he says, Tommy D, yes, growing up, I was Tommy D, my dad was Mr. D, so they couldn't confuse us that way, I guess, I don't know. Tommy D, what are you going to do next year, he asked. I said, well, Coach, I think I'm going to work a year and then maybe go to college. He just looked at me and he said, no, you're not. He said, I don't know anyone that has taken a year off and gone to college. He said, you're going to go to college. Okay, whatever. So it wasn't but a short time later, I had a call from a football coach at a small school in East Orange, New Jersey, Upsala College. He said that he had talked to my coach and seen my films and wanted me to come play down at Upsala. Well, I'm thinking, well, it's not going to cost me anything. Why don't I go, you know? And that is how I got my first taste of college, which, without going into all the details, eventually led to me graduating from Northeastern University with my degree in physical therapy 6 years later. So I tried for years to track down Coach Sawyer because I wanted to thank him and let him know the difference he made in my life. I didn't want that same regret I'd had with my grandmother. I honestly feel that if it weren't for him, I don't know what I would have become. And certainly the path I was on was not the best. I searched many times, but every time I got a phone number for him, it didn't work. And it just went on for years. And then finally last year I caught a break when a friend of mine who grew up on my street, New Jersey, calls me. Says, you'll never guess who I ran into at a restaurant bar in Florida. Coach Sawyer. At last, I had a phone number that worked. So we connected by phone, and we talked for probably 2 hours. And I was really nervous because Coach Sawyer in his football career, between college and playing in Canada, had a total of 7 concussions. And I had no idea what to expect, but boy, sharp as a tack, he was right there. It was a great conversation. So luckily, earlier this year, Graham Sessions were in Florida, and I got to see him and personally thank him for caring and making a difference in my life. And that's our reunion in Florida. Nope, go back one, please. That's our reunion in Florida. That's my buddy that I grew up with, Jerry, and myself and Coach Sawyer. Fortunately, I saw him again this past August as we watched the eclipse at his summer home in Wyoming with my best friend from high school. So, there we go. Now, I'll deviate a little here. So these sweatshirts that you're looking at, there's only 4 of them in the world. We went to Kinnelon High School in Kinnelon, New Jersey. My coach played at Wyoming, the Buffaloes, and so my buddy from high school, he's in the outerwear business, and he had these shirts specially made. They have our high school name, but they have the University of Wyoming logo for the Buffaloes, and we were the Colts, so it kind of fit in a way. So all 4 of them, Coach's wife has one as well. So while we were visiting with Coach, his wife brought out all his scrapbooks, and we started to go through them. And we came across a list that she had kept of all of us that he helped get into college over the years. The list had almost 80 names on it. He didn't just coach and teach. You see, he cared about others and made a difference in people's lives. My friends, I humbly stand before you, and I hope that somewhere, somehow, I've made maybe a small difference. And I sincerely thank you for allowing me to serve you and for this recognition. Thank you.